Okay, we're recording.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order for MARB, West Haven MARB Subcommittee. And it is April the 20th, and the time is 10:06. I'm Kimberly Kennison. I am the designee for Secretary McCaw, and with me today is Christine Shaw, who is the designee for the treasurer. I don't have any openings this morning. I just hope everybody is well. Christine?
Good morning, all. I have no formal opening remarks.
Thank you, Christine. So the first item, the second item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from March the 23rd.
I will, I'm not sure if you were looking for a motion. You got cut off, but I will move the minutes.
A motion for the
23rd.
approval of the minutes from March the 23rd. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, Tom Hamilton, so moved.
Bob White,
Frank, I need you to go on mute. It looks like we're getting some backlash there.
will do.
Thank you. I did not hear a motion and I apologize.
So can we have a motion from Tom Hamilton and a second from Bob White?
Gee, I didn't hear any
Yes, we can.
discussion. No discussion?
I'll do a roll call. I don't hear any questions or corrections on the minutes. Mr. White,
Yes.
Mr. Hamilton,
Yes.
Mr. Felsigno,
Yeah.
Ms. Shaw,
Yes.
and Ms. Kennison. I think she's having some audio or other technical issues. We'll come back to her, but that would give us four for approval of the minutes. I can text Kim and see how she's doing. And I'll just suggest possibly kicking off if the a co-chair, Shaw, if you want to maybe just kick off the next item, and I'll try to reach Kim. Oh, you got it? Okay.
All right. Did we get the minutes approved? I apologize.
Yes.
We did?
Did you have a vote?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is to review and discuss and possible action on the 5-year plan for 2022 through 2026. We decided that we would start with the 5-year plan since we have already looked at the budget a couple of times, and then we would, go over the actual FY22 recommended budget and any of the requests of changes that we had requested. Included in your packet is a summary of the overview of the plan, which Julian has provided. And also in the packet, we have the FY22 correspondence that we had asked for from the MARB for the city to take into consideration, and the items that are still remain open versus those that that are still pending items, as well as those that we have received some documentation on. The city has revised the Allentown budget, and we'll go over that today, and adjusted the fire fund for mill rate upward in order for the fund to provide additional contributions to the pension and begin pre-funding their OPED. The city can present their plan to us. Frank? Unless you have any opening comments, Julian, I was going to have Frank.
No, I don't have anything to add other than the summary notes that were included in the meeting packets.
Perfect. So Frank,
Okay.
Mayor,
Yep.
would you? Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. So the package you have in front of you is similar to the package that's been given in the prior years. You'll see 19 and 20 actual. This file does include a forecast for fiscal 21. This forecast ties to the numbers presented at the last official full MARB meeting. So that should be some consistency. The recommendations, the fiscal 22 budget, as well as forecasts for 23 through 26. Couple of things that have been modified to this. On page 3, which is the grand list projection, you'll see that in fiscal 23, we are expecting to see a downturn in the grand list. They have started demolishing buildings as part of the Haven project, so I'm expecting to see a downturn there. There are 2 new line items, Forest Manor and Parkview, that have been added. These are apartment complexes that have been built. They had tax abatements given to them that decrease over time. So the numbers that you're seeing in the file are the expected increase to the grand list as that abatement goes down year after year. So that has been added to the file. One thing to note on the revenue side, everything is fairly stable and consistent. One thing that we did add on page, let's see if I can find it now. Page 5. There's a line item that we added in there for the new pilot funds. We have a placeholder there of $500,000. Again, as noted in the last MARB meeting, we have heard numbers ranging anywhere from $500,000 to $1.5 million. But in order to get this document out, what we've done is we've used the lower end of those estimates. We have not, of course, seen anything from the governor's budget yet, but you know, it is expected, and so we do have that number as a placeholder in fiscal 23 through 26. As I said, everything else is consistent with prior years. There are no additional new hires as part of this plan document. We are at full capacity, we believe, with the police department, as well as in the fiscal 22 budget, we are increasing headcount to personnel and to other departments.
So
okay, all right, that's better. So no additional heads from that. What we are using is in the healthcare estimates, we are using a 7% growth factor for the partnership plan, and we are using a 15% increase for the retirees, which are still part of the third policy. So a little conservative there. You'll see, beginning on page 17, a detailed breakdown of the debt service by project for the next 5 years. This includes the bonding for 23, 24, 25, as well as 22, as per the proposed budget document. So all those projects in the budget, the fiscal 22 budget for the out years in the 5-year capital plan, have been taken. They have been layered into this debt service model, so we can get a fairly accurate view as to when specific line items are dropping off, when specific line items start increasing. So you'll note that the debt service drops significantly in 23. Of course, as we've talked about before, that is the police pension fund that is ending. Fiscal 24 and 25 ramp up again as the Board of Education projects take hold. So that's the bonding around the high school, as well as $16 million for Washington School for the rebuild there. And then a slight drop off in fiscal 26 as the refunding that happened in prior years starts to phase out. So fairly confident around this plan. I think we've gone through it. The mayor and I have looked at it. We have kicked the tires on it, and I am available for any of your questions.
Frank Bob White, the tax appeals were due March 21. Anything significant there?
No, I have not been told anything from the assessor's office as far as appeals. So
okay, but have they communicated, or they just haven't said anything?
They have. I think everything's been communicated out. They would have notified me if there was any material change.
Big ones. Okay. Oh, that's great, because that's a key part to your plan. That's good. On the police, is that did you meet your quota, or did you change your quota?
I believe the chief has met his quota.
Good. Good. And just out of curiosity, how did you were getting poached? I guess that's a technical word, but by surrounding towns. How did you reverse that trend?
I don't know that the trend's been reversed. I know that we've filled the open spots.
Good enough.
So, going forward, we may still get poached, but for now, all the slots are filled.
One other, we've been talking a little bit about a 3-year runway to end this party. Is there any way, and I'm not suggesting you do this, but is there any way that your budget for 21 would break even? Maybe if you, including the MARB funds, maybe if you gave back a little bit, the MARB fund. Again, I'm not suggesting that you do, but it's just if it's a 3-year runway, then I guess we start counting with 22.
No matter what we do, Bob, because they're getting funding from us.
No, oh, okay. No, I would just want, right.
Any restructuring funding is.
No, comes off. But they don't have it yet, right? No, it's if you would take a return check, right, and just if they said, forget about it, that would be okay with you, right?
Oh, certain.
Yeah.
I don't know if their budget could absorb the $4 million.
Yeah, no, but no, it wouldn't be the 4.
That's what I was going to say. Is unfortunately it's a $4 million influx to the city, and I don't think I can cover that much.
Okay. So it's our goodbye party is at the end of July 24. Then okay.
Should we meet all of the criteria? Should they meet all of them?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, again, that's my thought. I think I had suggested that there be some short addendum to the plan with the criteria for having us getting out of their hair, just so that we and they can track that, whatever other requirements there may be besides the balanced budget.
Entire list of efficiencies that have to be completed with the MOA.
However you want to do it.
Right. Well, that's in addition, just so you're aware, with the existing MOA. I just want to make sure, has the secretary joined us yet? I'm assuming she would tell us. Okay. Any other questions from the MARB? Frank, you didn't mention some of the changes that you had made in that with the FY22 budget. I know we're going to touch upon it, but I'm assuming that you already rolled all of those into the 5-year plan, but I don't know that. Because
That is
this is
correct.
my the plan.
Yep, that is correct. The recommended, the 22 recommended is from the budget that's been submitted
to you.
The only change is in the Allentown model. It does include the additional funding for the pension and the OPEB as approved by the city council.
And would communicate what those items are for them?
So it is $350,000 towards the unfunded pension liability and $50,000 towards the an OPEB fund for Allentown, and that is on page AFD 3 of the Allentown model.
Okay. And those are one times, correct?
Well, it's in every year. We have it in
Okay.
22 through 26 because we're assuming that the money's coming in, the 960,000 will continue through 26.
Very good.
Frank, I'm trying to understand one of your schedules on GF2, your fund balance. Maybe you already spoke to this and I missed it, but you've got fund balance adjustment for your general fund, that pretty big number in 22-23 of $3,948,000. What is that again?
So the fund balance adjustment is a number that's built into the budget in order to effectively end with a surplus during the year to grow the fund balance. And the reason we're able to contribute that much in 23 is that the police pension bonds come off the debt service schedule.
Oh, okay. So it's in basically you've got revenues exceeding expenditures for that year. Is that really what that is?
That is correct. So for every year, just as in the current year, we have a line item for that, and in 22 we do as well. So we're planning for a budgeted surplus in order to grow the fund balance.
Gotcha. Okay.
And you can see if everything goes according to plan, we should be at roughly 6% of annual operating costs by fiscal 26.
Yep. Looks great.
Very good. Any other questions? Frank, I have a question about the contingency and other on page GF2, where the contingency seems to be very large in fiscal year 2023. What is behind that $4.6 million in expenses?
That is where, within the budget, that's where we're putting that fund balance adjustment.
Oh, okay.
So if you were to look at, let me find the page. If you looked at GF16.
GF16, bear with me.
Yep. It's the very last line in that contingency area.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm having trouble putting my finger on the one with, did you put in here I thought you did, what the original intention was from fund balance versus where you're gonna fall out at?
I don't believe I have it in this particular model. The original document?
Yep, the original fund balance that we, in the 5-year plan, and I think we did agree to revise it, but I think we had a couple, there were actually like 3 scenarios where we would have a revised one and we had an original one. You didn't include that in this model, so we can see if we're on the mark or not versus the
No,
budget.
it did not print out, but I noticed that it is on page 2 of Julian's summary
Okay.
at the bottom.
Thank you, Julian. So we're off the mark for fund balance in 2023, even though that's the year that you're putting in a large replenishment, right? From the original plan?
Yeah, I would have to go back to the original plan document to see what assumptions were around that.
And I know we have an update. Is that the only line? We never went out further years from the, okay, no, you do have updated ones from the updated plan. Hold on. Yeah, it's just hard to compare here.
It did bounce around a bit from plan to plan because if you remember, we had, from the baseline of the original plan,
Yes.
the fund balance targets have improved over time, except for the 1 year when fund balance had to be restated. That kind of reset everything.
Yep, in 19.
So, yeah.
Yep. So it would be helpful if we had all 3 numbers together of where the projected amount is for the fund balance of going out in the out years from 24, 25, and 26. I see the updated plan, but I'd like to see it right close to the fund. I want to compare it to where your plan is.
Yeah, I can send that to you, Kim, once I can connect to the network.
Thank you. Okay. Because I want to make sure we're on the target. That's going to be what our course, and that we meet that target.
Frank, your police pension numbers are pretty stable. Are those all based on projections from your actuary?
No, we have not gotten the new projection yet. We're in the process of pulling in the census data for them.
So you don't have a multi-year projection of?
No, I used the numbers, the projected numbers that were in the last valuation.
Okay, but so it was based on evaluation.
Yeah, those numbers did come out of a Milliman document. It's just not. It wouldn't be the latest and greatest valuation assumption.
Okay.
But it's the last numbers I have from them.
Yep.
Good. For FY22, I don't know if anybody else has any other questions about the 5-year plan, we can discuss them, but I do have some questions that are relevant to FY22, which would then roll into the 5-year plan. And that has to do with the contingency of the FY22, but I don't want to leap into that if others have more questions within this plan.
Kim, Bob White, just a process question. Is it anticipated that the fire districts will be having 5-year plans? you know, I saw Mike Malone's, mill rate calculations. You know, I know that it's taken a while to get the tri-district off the ground. But I'm thinking of, is there a plan to go just beyond shared services and to just say, look, we need to sit down and figure out what we really need over 5 years? Because that mill rate is pretty staggering.
Understand. I do know that at this moment we do have, these are estimates that we've received. Their budget, I don't believe we've received one of the fire districts at all for their budget. And we have not, we're aware that one gets presented, I think this week, tomorrow or the next day.
Right.
So we did include it in the MOA for the mayor to reach out and get that. And Mike Malone is the one who has been working on it. Our intention is to get that. We have not had any, I have not from my office. Julian, have you worked with Mike Malone on that request? I have not.
Michael has updated me, and the mayor or Frank may want to jump in and fill in where I'm either off a little or leaving in blanks. But I know that Michael has reached out to each of the fire chiefs to begin coordinating a compilation of district 3-year plans initially. That will actually probably follow the budget process for them. I don't know that they'll be able to put together their multi-year plans with the budget simultaneously. I know that Frank has developed templates for the financial section of the multi-year plans, and that they'll be including in the plans any sort of shared services that they anticipate or shared efforts in, obtaining, we've talked about for a while, the shared pension investment services, some of the other back office functions, looking at all of the recommendations in the fire report and determining which ones they can pick off first and make progress on, and then moving on to the others that are in the report, and probably things that weren't included in the report. So there's a process in place. I can't tell you what the timing exactly will be, but they are working on it, and I know that they've already begun the process of getting their ducks in order.
Thank you.
Before Frank jumps in, Kim, unfortunately, I have to jump off this meeting. I had another meeting come up that I need to attend, so I just want to let you know I've got to leave now.
Okay, thank you for attending, Tom. We appreciate any input.
So yeah, Julian is correct. What I've done is I had budget data from West Shore and Center District. So I've developed models for them using the line items that they populate in their individual budgets. The anticipation being that they would drop in the 22 budget as well as do projections for the out years. So the look and feel will be exactly the same as the Allingtown fire model. As they drop in the information, as well as grand list activity, it will calculate their mill rates for them in the out years.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome. And Michael has those models.
Appreciate your work on this.
My pleasure.
That's progress. That's progress.
Consistency, right? We want a consistent look and feel.
Yes, yes, that's a lot of progress. I can tell you that. And it will be helpful for those districts. So that's good news. Thank you, Frank. I know that probably was a heavy lift for you to do.
Yeah, it took a couple nights.
I'm sure it did. I'm sure. And then you have to help them by training.
Yes. Yeah, I'll be willing to sit with each of their business managers and with the chiefs to help walk them through it. But again, I think because each model uses the lines that they have used in the past. It has their already, it has their look and feel that they should be used to.
Very good. My next questions are around the FY22 and contingency, and that we had requested, and we did get a list of items that are from the FY22 budget, and so I guess I have questions about the list of items that are listed there, because it looks as if they are all budgetary items of new items that had been included in this year's budget, but now are relevant, being classified as COVID related. Who's going to comment on that?
It's on, yep.
Okay. Hi, Kim. Nancy Rossi, and I have Michael DeMassa here as well. He did help assist with this. So first, yes, we did identify COVID-related, and to be honest with you, I think it's very conservative because I do believe there's going to be much more of that being said. And the other thing I did want to put in here, I understand that, you know, everyone's asking for a contingency plan for the, you know, the American Recovery Plan and the use of less than 1% of our overall budget in our budget. My contingency plan is every place I've looked. The reason that the American Recovery Plan is even in place is because of the decimation of COVID financially, not only to our municipality, but pretty much every single municipality throughout the United States and probably throughout the world. So the only reason I see that you can use this money now is for COVID related. They want it used quickly. They want, and when I say they, I've read everything I can on it. I've attended several webinars on it. I have spoke to Senator Blumenthal. I have spoken to Senator Murphy's office. In fact, his office hosted one of the webinars in which he did participate. I have spoken to Rosa DeLaura's office, and everyone has told me that, yes, they don't have all the details out. They absolutely don't. However, no one has said to me, you can't use that for COVID-related expenditures. So again, my contingency plan is to use this. I believe that, I don't want to say all of the council, but I am in the belief that the council, or at least most of the members of the council, are backing this. We are in budget deliberations right now. So again, the budget won't pass until May the 6th, whether it's up, down, or default, or however it goes in, but that's when the budget deadline is. So again, this is why we identified, and this is only a small amount of the expenditures, I mean, that are going to take place. I mean, they're talking now about a booster shot, which is going to be similar to the flu season shot, and that it's going to be annual. We're setting up clinics, and and again, I have asked some questions that I haven't gotten answer to, but that is more on the revenue side. Again, we have been told that we're supposed to compare FY19 to FY20, and if there were revenue shortfalls, which there are, a little bit over $1.1 million that can be identified by side-by-side comparison. My question, though, and again, this one I haven't read anywhere other than how to calculate it, is, okay, so it's in a closed, audited year. How do we recoup, or, you know, do we just take the $1.1 million? Because had it been there, it would have just flowed through to the general fund and put it in, you know, FY21. These are questions that I am looking for. But as far as the expenditures, and again, Michael can, expand it more if you have specific questions, or any of the members do. Right now, the only use for this money is COVID related, that anybody has identified, along with sewer, water, and broadband.
So Frank, one of the recommendations was to take COVID expenditures out of the operating budget and put it into a, hold on, bear with me. Give me the term, Julian. revenue.
Special revenue fund.
Special revenue fund, yeah.
So you're not looking to strip it out and put it in a special revenue fund. You're looking to continue to carry all of the expenditures within the operating budget as well as the revenue.
Here is what I've been in conference, and I wish Michael Malone of all days he wasn't here because him and I have talked at length about this. He felt doing a special revenue fund would be difficult because we're really doing it for 1 year, because I honestly do hope next year this time we're at the tail end of COVID and we're moving forward. That being said, his suggestion to me was, as we have this list, we should remove it but put it in a separate page in the budget, and that so anyone can identify then and see that. So that's what him and I have talked about. Again, he is not here today. But if we have to move it to the special revenue fund, but to do that for 1 year, where we would have to put it all back then the following year.
Can I just add to, because I did talk to Mike about it also, Kim?
Yeah.
Is that the issue is that, I don't know if it's all, but a significant portion of that 1.57 million in expenditures that was identified are basically part of the city's base or core budget.
I see.
That the city is expecting will be eligible for COVID reimbursement, but they are part of the base. So basically base salaries of certain personnel, for example, or a portion thereof. And so if they were to be pulled out, as the mayor said, and set, segregated in a special revenue fund, then they would have the issue of the following year coming back and building them back into the general fund budget. By separating them out within the general fund budget, as Michael suggested, they would at least be easier to track for reporting purposes when they do seek the reimbursement. So that was just to kind of add to the explanation there. Thanks.
Thank you, Julian. That's very helpful. But when I look at year over year and the added amount of expenditures, and knowing that you included some of this as part of your base budget, the increase of expenditures, let me double check. I thought it was expenditures only went up, 300,000. And you're now from base budget. And now all of these are new items that we have included into this budget and that we're saying that are going to get reimbursed, as we called it, COVID. And then when I look at the listing, I wonder if there are errors in here. And my reason for that is, so the bottom line says you still have a contingency within your contingency of 156K. So that's misleading. I would say that all of it has to be accounted for, not another contingency. And then it looks like your corp counsel is repeated 3 times in here for the same expense, unless there's a reason for that. It's the exact same line item. $25,000 is listed on every single page.
I don't have it. You don't have one?
So I think you should go back and look at that. And in addition, there are just a number of line items that I would wonder if you've added new positions to the budget this year, because we needed to add them for other various reasons, but now they're called COVID related expenses.
Kim, do you want me to hop in on that?
Yeah, who?
Michael? Vanessa.
Yeah.
Hi, Michael.
So, Kim, the administration did a very good job of meeting with their department heads and looking at kind of the COVID expenses that they've incurred this year, and trying to reflect out. I mean, I'll give you an example. If you look at, obviously, the health department, the 551,000 over there, they're doing COVID. 99% of their jobs in that department's COVID now, and that's going to most likely continue. So that's a $354,000 line item alone. Now you could argue, well, the following year they're going to have regular operations. They have to be in the budget. That's true. However, they're not doing regular operations, and we don't see them doing regular operations in the near future. I mean, they're not doing regular inspections. Everything they're doing with the public is all COVID related, and the clinics and those operations are taking up 99% of their time. So I think the mayor was wise to say, you know, for the following year then, the taxpayers in West Haven shouldn't be paying for that. It's a COVID related expense, and we're going to get it from the federal government. And that's really the similar story for most of these line items. If you look at human resources, they put more of their staff doing the COVID clinic. They have overtime related to COVID. If you look at the Parks and Recs department, the mayor has increased staff built in for COVID, and every activity they do this summer is going to have to be double the expense because of the COVID mandates, et cetera, with social distancing, with increased staff, with extra space, with PPE. All the cleaning supplies in all the departments are listed here, all being spent with COVID. The police department has, you know, significant overtime this year with COVID. Uniform expense clean because of COVID. Maintenance service, the sanitizing of the department, the cells. So yes, you know, usually in a typical year, most of these lines cover regular expenses. But I kind of use the analogy, you know, if you have a vehicle at the mechanic and all of a sudden an emergency repair comes in for COVID, if they're not working on your vehicle anymore, you're not going to pay to work on the other person's vehicle. So, you know, I think they're trying to do the best by the taxpayer by making sure that she collects every federal dollar for COVID-related expenses and takes that burden, at least temporarily, off of the taxpayer. And I will check that line item, Kim. That's the Corp Council. I will check.
One other question. What is your fiscal year 2021 projected expenses for COVID? And that is a full year worth of COVID.
I would say, Kim, right now we have some line items we have to put into the COVID account from the PD, from other departments. But Kim, I would be surprised to not see that go to 2 million, if not more than 2 million. And that was also some extreme hard work by some of our department heads to reallocate resources, not to have increased. You know, they've ceased other activities to make sure they've tried to stay within some of their line items. And I think the mayor's trying to make sure next year they can do their COVID test and try to get some of the other stuff done as well. But I would say it's probably going to fall around 2 million, if not more.
Correct. And I concur with that. And again, we're expecting to get reimbursement. And once the funding is released for the American Recovery Plan, we're already identifying, and Frank's in the process of identifying COVID. Again, that is the reason the American Recovery Plan exists today, was to assist cities with this problem. And being, you know, we started off, we don't have the fund balance that other municipalities have, as you're well aware of. So we are very fortunate to have been given this funding. And as I stated earlier, I am looking for some sort of direction for the shortfall in revenue between FY19 and FY20, because it is over $1 million, 1.1 and change. And that can be proven out just by a side-by-side comparison.
And you're looking at 19 to 20 or 18? 19 to 20?
No, FY19 to FY20.
Okay.
Frank
So,
actually has side-by-side things that we can send over to, because I don't know if they got that or not. Remember what you ran for me, Frank, the revenues?
we can see a decrease from 19's level to 20. I can see that in your actuals right now.
Mm-hmm. So they say you can use this funding again for revenue, but again,
Sure.
as I said, our year is closed and audited, so it would have ended up, had they given it to us on the last day of FY20, it would have flowed into our, because, you know, we didn't have a deficit, so it would have flowed into our general fund. So I'm hoping that when that instruction come out, and hopefully that's going to be relatively soon, we will know what to do with that 1.1. So that's, I said, I'm trying to identify everything other than what the secretary told me absolutely do not use, which was the 4.9 million for the distressed municipalities and the new tiered pilot funding, the you know, the increase in that. So we have not used either one of those. But I am looking at the revenues, and I am looking for reimbursement in FY21, and I do believe wholeheartedly that FY22 is going to have those COVID expenditures. This isn't going to shut off on July the 1st.
Okay, but somebody will look at your listing and confirm that these are truly COVID related and that you're not duplicating those items, as well as the additional expenses. You said replacement of line item and it has a contingency. I don't think we should have a contingency within a contingency. This is a contingency.
We'll examine it, Kim. Well, yeah, we'll take a look.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. It's one or the other, Kim.
Thank you.
One or the other.
Okay, some of the other recommendations, would you like to go over? So this was the ARPA funding, and we have that listing, and so we're asking you to look back at that again. We did talk about from the open items of 22, the Allentown fires, and that you provided information there. You did mention, Frank, that the mill rate has increased from what it was originally.
That's correct.
And what is it? What was the adjustment, please?
The mill rate for the general fund, not for the general.
So it was
the
originally 1402. It went down to 10.91. But where did you land?
11.62.
Thank you.
And that's on page 1 of the Allentown model.
And that's already been voted in as a change to this budget. It received, actually, I believe unanimous, but in excess of the 9 required votes. So that now is part of the budget that the council is looking at.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Kim, I have a question for Frank. Frank, I think it's Pat Egan. Previously, we talked about the with the pension fund with Allentown and whether they adopted the new generational mortality rates. Do we know if that has happened?
I have no idea. The Allentown valuation, I believe, was just done. So, I mean, I could reach out to Milliman to see. I'm sure they'll use it for the police pension, which is currently underway.
So usually those are done every 2 years. So if we just received one, we wouldn't see that again.
Correct. Allentown, I believe we just received.
Yeah, unless we pay them to do it again.
Yeah.
Are we doing anything to bolster that pension besides limping along with it? I mean, it's pretty dismal there, right? What are we at, 20% funded?
You mean besides the incremental numbers that are in the plan?
Yeah.
No, I mean, we're contributing an additional $650,000 this year, an additional $350,000 expected for the next 5 years over the ADEC.
And with that planned out, what's the how much time is it estimated before that plan is fully funded, or at least say at 80% funded?
I can circle back with the actuary. I don't have those numbers.
We can bring that up and send that off in a separate mailing to you.
So I just want to ask Frank again, just to explain. So I know at one point they were reducing, because of the increase in the value of the properties, they were going to reduce the mill rate, but they didn't reduce it as much, if I'm interpreting.
Correct. They adjusted
right.
it. Yes.
So
because we requested that.
Right. We requested them to not reduce it as much. So I just think going forward, the pension problem isn't going away anytime soon, and I think at some point it's got to be really attacked instead of just, in my opinion, just kind of putting just kind of that. I just think it's a little bit of window dressing, in my opinion. I think it really needs to be addressed and really needs to be attacked because, interest rates are very low right now, and things change on the drop of a dime. Whoever thought we'd have a pandemic? So I think you have to address that as aggressively as you possibly can, because that's something that's been a sore thumb that's been sticking out since I started on the MARB. So, I agree with the other MARB members that have spoken about this. So, just wanted to say that.
So we can bring back for the next MARB meeting, the recap of the analysis that, I don't know, it was a number of meetings ago that we had. Julian and folks had worked hard to pull together. We can bring those numbers back and just refresh everybody.
Thank you. I know everybody's working very hard at trying to, balance that tricky level where you're being fair with the constituency and also managing, the pension and the money. So I understand it. I know there's no quick fix, but I just think I think that's something that has to be aggressively looked at.
Kim, one of the questions that dovetails off this is for the exit ramp. I think one of the criteria is sustainability, and I'm just wondering, obviously not for now, but whether their handling of the pension and the OPEB is a criteria there. I know Tom a couple sessions ago had some what I thought very thoughtful ideas about the time to catch up, and was the municipality putting unneeded pressure on itself to get the pension funding up, as long as it was trending in the right direction. OPEB
Right.
is something different, and I just think we ought to get a strategy to do that. I mean, obviously, the more we can throw at it, the better. When the city started, it was really a big problem, and they've certainly made strides. I think we sort of ought to get a realistic approach to this so that it will be sustainable. And I think they've got time to do it.
Yep. Understand and agree with you. One of the other areas that was mentioned in a recommendation was the internal service fund, and putting a placeholder in there as far as there's a deficit of, I know it's north of $9 million. And so it would be important for us to hear what your plan is for addressing that internal service fund.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a plan at the moment, to tell you the truth. I mean,
Yep.
We're trying to deal with the other funds. The original, we agreed that there's an issue there that needs to be dealt with, but we don't have a plan right now on how to deal with them.
Okay.
We're trying to get the general fund where it needs to be.
Sure.
As well as the other two, and then we can tackle the.
Kim, it's Nancy Rossi. I just wanted to add one thing. One thing that we did ask about early on in a lot of these discussions when we came under MARB was if we went to the Connecticut Partnership Plan, would we get assistance with the IBNR? And we did not. And we were hopeful that we would, because somehow maybe we could have allocated something to the internal service funds, because the workers' comp is one of them as well, and we still do have deficits. So as I said, we were hoping that we were going to get reimbursed for the IBNR, and we were told right along we were, and then all of a sudden it was like, no, it was absorbed. So we were hoping to put that funding to good use. So I just want to, because I don't know, we've had a lot of changes over the past 3.5 years. So I just want to make sure that all the members on here now, if they weren't there, that was what happened.
Well, based on the performance, and I think we all heard back from the secretary at the time, that based on the performance of that year, and you built into the budget your IBM, that was already covered with the operating budget, and your performance soared above the level of the fund balance during those years. So that is why it was not contributed.
Well, I understand all of that, but again, doesn't stop having a deficit in the internal service fund. So I guess I was hopeful that, we were going to look at the whole, everything like we're doing right now, as opposed to, just the general fund. So again, we were only told that after we did well that year. And I'm glad we did well. Don't get me wrong. I'm very happy that we've done well, and we've done well, I think, pretty much every single year. But I was hopeful that.
But let's not forget that you did well with the resources from the MARB and the restructuring funds, okay?
Oh, I do agree, but we have also done a lot of work along with this, and we have made changes, and some changes were made even, right in the beginning. So again, yes, it was with the restructuring funds, but I think every year the restructuring funds that were promised didn't have to be paid because we did do well.
Correct. Which is good news. Which is
yes,
one of.
It is good news. Very good news.
Exactly.
Kim, Lee Turner, it's not that we're not doing anything on the IBNR. The IBNR is the basic cause.
You're talking about
cash
the internal service fund.
Yes, the basic cause was cash flow. In other words, there was a cash flow issue, so you pick and choose, and that people had the ability to pick and choose not to put funds into those. That's how they grew. So they're not growing. For instance, in the workers' comp area.
Down. Yeah, they're slowly going down.
But I'm stipping more cases. We don't have a cash flow issue. So it is getting better, and I think we'll have a plan. But it's not that we're not doing anything. It's not that it hasn't improved. That's all I'm saying.
Right, and I do know that you added additional legal counsel to help with the workman comp cases and changing the plan.
Yeah, well, in addition to that, we hadn't done a stipulation in about 5 years, so we're taking money so our reserve account can change, and we're paying our bills on time. Not that I don't think we've dented the deficit too much, but you got to understand that. The cash flow issue, now that it's been eliminated, is creating relief. We're chipping away at it. Admittedly, I just don't want you to think we're not doing anything. We're not at zero. We're certainly not at perfection. We still have a ways to go, but we're not at zero.
Mm-hmm. And so I would ask that you deliberate and talk about what that plan would be out in the future, because you're asking to no longer take the MARB funds for next year, and you're to go on your own for your runway. And so I understand you're looking to grow the fund balance. What would be the plan that you would put in place to address this, so that we don't ignore that there is a large deficit out there?
Understood. We'll review.
Thank you, Frank. Any other questions from the MARB about, I've kind of morphed into fiscal year 22. And the next item for comprehensive Board of Ed budget was for us to receive that in the tables. And we did receive that. And we received that on Friday. I think that Julian got that out to the committee as well. I do have some follow-up questions from the Board of Ed side and some of the details that were provided there by 22 budget, but I don't want to hop over there unless anybody else has questions while we're still on this. And did Matt join us today?
Yes, I'm on, Kim.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. So let me see if I can find my note. Matt, and looking at your year over year, from the board side, thank you for providing this detail because it's very helpful for us.
Mhm.
And correct me if I'm right or wrong, but on the balance of the Alliance grant, that's the one-time funding. Am I correct on that?
That's one. No, that is that's the Alliance grant that we receive every year as a part of the ECS funding. And the way it was set up, any increases of the Alliance grant come directly to the Board of Ed after the city meets its ECS obligation in the budget.
But the one, it's not an on fund, right? That was one time.
No, so the Alliance grant is $7 million, roughly $7 million, a little bit over. So we expect to receive that in the following years, but I believe the governor said there will be no increases going forward. So we will still receive the 3.6 that goes directly into the budget, and then the board gets the 3.8 again next year and in future years, as long as the grant stays.
Okay. None of these other grants are one time, correct?
Nope, none of the grants on this page are one-time grants.
And I'm talking about for the Board of Ed versus the.
Yes, nothing is one time.
Okay. Well, you got a lot of background noise coming.
I'm not hearing anything.
Okay, good. I am. Glad you're not hearing it. The other area that when I look
Kim, you're really breaking up on that.
at, Julian, can you identify where the background noise is?
Yeah, it's coming. It looks like it's coming from Matt's line.
I'll just mute until.
You hear
Yeah.
Until.
Thank you, Julian. My other questions is when I look at the year over year on the budget side of life, and I look at like the special education teachers, and when I look at the actual performance versus what is being budgeted, looks as if we might be running low in that area. And so I guess some of my questions there would be, why would we take increase? Is it the students that you had compared to the prior years? You're not anticipating that they're going to go up again. But as we know, I heard, I believe from the superintendent that this is an area that is continuing to grow. So I'm just wondering why there's a decrease of about $200,000.
So for FY 22, the decrease represents the raise that these teachers are set to receive, and that is being pushed over to the ESSER 2 funding. That was what. So that's what.
Pull the two together.
Excuse me.
I would have to pull two lines together to get the true cost. Okay.
So basically, what the governor said in the original budget was to, because we're no longer getting the Alliance grant increases, to use the ESSER 2 funding as to kind of supplement any budget holes. So because we're being flat funded, all of the increases are being shifted over to that ESSER funding for the next couple of years.
I see it now. I'm sorry. I misunderstood the way that you put the two together. So now I'm understanding it better. Thank you. So I have to look at it with both documents in front of me so that I can understand where the funds go. Your trend analysis is on one with your detail for the FY22 budget. And then when we look at the grant funds, it's in the different one. So I didn't realize that your increase, you're really at 6.8 versus the 5.7. And when I looked at your actuals of 5.9 coming out of 2020, I was looking for an increase. And so I missed that. That's how you were funding it.
Yeah, I just didn't think it would be worthwhile for anyone to continue with our $91 million request in any of these documents.
No, I get you. This is helpful. I didn't need it to bridge it. The same with the classroom for the classroom teachers. I had the same question, which is why was there a decrease? And I'm seeing that the funding with grant funds. I'm going to have to go and take another look at this before rather than sit here and take up everybody's time, because I didn't connect the dots between the two documents. But now that was helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions for the Board of Ed besides? Oh, I do have a question for your projections for FY 2021. Did you tell us at the last meeting that the insurance certified and the health insurance non-certified, that those haven't been adjusted as of yet?
I made the adjustment in the monthly. We increased the budget because they're running higher, and March looks like another extremely high month. So we have made those adjustments.
Very good. I just wanted to confirm that because I see that they're up a bit. And I have to look at the tuition line too, because that one looked like it was very short, but I have to look at your two documents to understand what's going on there. Okay. Is that all the questions? I think that's all the questions that I have for today. Give me 1 minute. I want to go back to that caption and make sure that because the Board of Ed was the next open items. And the next item was the proposed special task district, and to have a conversation about that. I know that we included that in the packet, but Lee, it might be helpful for you to give an overview of the information that you had shared. Lee, are you still with us?
He is. He's coming over. Hang on.
Sorry.
Yes, sorry. So first, as I said to Kim in an email, and I apologize, that email was done late and not proofread, so there are some errors in syntax. But there was nobody trying to play hide the ball here. The developer has proposed a special task district, not the city. It's been on the table for a long time. It only got traction in January when it appeared that the legislature could take it up due to a combination of factors, including COVID. They couldn't. Special tax districts have been around for a long time. The city enjoys, as the board knows, special tax districts for each of the fire districts. People use special tax districts for lake districts in order to get services and amenities. A city like New Haven, for instance, has a special downtown tax district so that they could get some increased revenue, so that they could provide a variety of services to make their downtown better. So it's a vehicle used in Connecticut for a long time for a lot of different reasons. The Connecticut Office of Legislative Research has a detailed memo on it from October of 2011 by a Root Pinho, an associate analyst at the time, and he pretty much outlines all the different reasons and why you would have a special tax district. But I would say the short answer is the developer anticipated a bigger subsidy from the state when they proposed the $200 million development high-end retail experiential project. And so when that wasn't going to come to fruition, they were looking for ways to make the numbers work, and the special tax district then became the vehicle. So right now, the district only encompasses land owned by the Haven project. That's how it's defined. It would help support, for instance, a 1.5 acre linear public park that'll be across the border where the harbor is. It would also support their ability to put up, various street lighting, hydrants, different sort of public amenities that the city wouldn't be burdened with. They would use their lease provisions. In a normal commercial lease, for people that don't know, there are usually what are called tax escalator clauses, which allow the lessor to make sure that they're not burdened with any sort of tax increase or tax expense burden in the lease process, and that the actual lessee absorbs any of that. So what would happen here is the lessees would have in their lease agreements the ability to pay whatever the tax district wanted to assess. It's really the Haven taxing itself until they create those lease arrangements. So in effect, it is an ability for the Haven to float revenue bonds, and those bonds will be issued at a much lower rate than commercial financing. I would guess, given the current status of the bond market and the current status of commercial lending, they could save interest as much as 5%. So it would have a definite impact on the numbers in terms of putting together this deal, and it's something they're enthusiastic about doing. So once the legislature gives approval, and I'm not presupposing the legislature, they'll have a vote on that, but assuming they do that, then the developer has to come back to the city and negotiate an interlocutory agreement so that we know that all our needs are met and they know that all their needs are met. And, for other districts, a fire district, for instance, the city actually collects the taxes. We provide that administrative service for our fire districts. Again, you only have one entity here. I don't know that would occur, but pursuant to the legislation, the tax district, you have street lights, you have plant care, ornamental trees, sidewalks, roads, crosswalks, maintain the recreational facilities like the linear park. So all of these things are envisioned within the statutory scheme of a special taxing district. I don't really anticipate that the city's administrative role would have to be that significant. But we get to engage in an interlocutory agreement that will ensure that the city's interest is protected. The last thing, which is important, there was a case in September which involved Reading and a Georgetown development group. And we're lucky in the state of Connecticut. The Chief Justice of the Connecticut Supreme Court is Judge Robinson, who is a former municipal attorney from Stanford. So he's probably the most knowledgeable municipal law judge that the Supreme Court's ever had. And the decision out of that case determined that city taxes, city liens, including fire district taxes and liens, have a priority superiority to any revenue bonds that are floated by the tax district. And what that means is that, the city will be able to collect their money and enforce that collection with a foreclosure. What you wouldn't want is if the city had to collect their money through a foreclosure process and then the revenue bonds had to be paid off in advance, the city would basically be foreclosing free for the revenue bond holders. So that law is clear. It's by the highest court in the state of Connecticut, so that we can depend on it. and there really isn't any obstacle left to the special tax district. I can say that the developer is not sitting on their hands waiting for the creation of this district. They have been steadily removing buildings, commercial buildings along the waterfront, and has almost completed that process. They're going to remove commercial buildings along the state-owned Elm Street, and will be positioned then to start removing the other commercial buildings and residential homes that need to be removed in order to do the development, and also make the transportation improvements that are going to be necessary also for this development. I can also say that this developer, interestingly enough, the Simon Group, their stock has performed quite well under COVID. Our own police pension has shares in that stock. And they have not shied away from what is their exclusive field, which is in the retail, ownership of retail space and the ownership of retail entities. They've doubled down. They've bought companies like Brooks Brothers. They've bought other entities, stakes in JCPenney. They've cut deals with Amazon in terms of turning excess retail space into fulfillment centers. They're not leaving this sphere at all. They're going into the experiential retail place. And I think just anecdotally, anybody who has been enduring this COVID situation in Connecticut, the people I encounter want to get out and about desperately. They really would like to be able to get out of the house, to be able to have something to do, and being able to go to a waterfront facility or with a recreational space to do shopping and otherwise, I think is a unique concept that will work well. So we're pretty enthusiastic. The mayor did support by testimony this special tax district before the Planning and Development Committee, and we will just await to see how this turns out in the legislative session, and it's fully supported by the West Haven legislative delegation. And now I'm available for any questions.
Any questions from the members? Okay, it doesn't look to be. Oh, sorry. All right, that is it for an item. As far as the FY22 budget and the 5-year plan, I am wondering if anyone feels comfortable enough at the moment to take action on either one of these items. I do think that there is some work and follow-up still to be done with the 5-year plan. We just have received this for the first time, but I'm wondering if folks are comfortable.
I wouldn't recommend taking any action right now.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think the fire districts have, the plug budget to put, a budget to put in. I understand the plan will come later, but yeah, let it gel a little bit. We can take a vote at the full meeting. Okay.
So you don't want a recommendation coming from the subcommittee first. So if you have any follow-up, then we would want to get that out to West Haven, the city, so that they can respond.
Yeah, that's. I mean, other than just seeing what the fire districts are, I think that was my only question, unless you wanted a different presentation based on some of your questions, but.
Yeah. Well, I do want to make sure that some of the open items on the contingency have been looked at again, and I would like to see the trend that would build out from the original fund balance and where we're falling in from where with Frank's new fund balance in the out years. So I would see what that plan is to make sure that we're in line. And if not, I would like them to adjust it to make sure we get in line. And any of the other open that the secretary might have had, I really want to hear about what their plan is for internal service fund for this to be the first year that they're looking to be released in a runway away from the MARB.
Ms. Kennison, is there an issue, a timing issue that would prevent us as a subcommittee from taking this up at the next subcommittee meeting before it goes before MARB?
Yeah, I believe so. Right, Julian?
Are you, if we're talking just about the 5-year plan, I don't think there's a timing issue. If we're talking about the budget, then that's a different matter.
Right. There is a timing on the regular budget, correct? Can you communicate that, Julian?
Well, the timing issue with the budget is that the city council has until May 6th to take whatever action they're going to take. We've already given them our direction from the MARB,
right, based
on the last 2 meetings of what changes the MARB was expecting to see in the FY22 budget. This is kind of the last, I don't even know. I don't know what the city council's plan is in terms of meeting again, other than they have until May 6th to take any further adjustments to the budget. And then the MARB meets on May 13th. The presumptive timeline was that the MARB would then take action at that meeting.
Right.
And how much time would be required to resolve the questions that have been raised today? I mean, would it even be possible to have a special meeting? I just feel like these questions are important enough to afford the city time to gather the information and kind of circle back with us prior to the MARB meeting.
Could propose a special meeting if so choose, or they can update their documents and we can communicate by the updated documents. That either way, Christine.
Either would work. I just want to be mindful of the tight time frame, but again, these issues are important enough to have resolved to everyone's satisfaction.
Agree. And Julian and I will brief the secretary and also get her input.
Kim, I think we should be very clear, however, to be fair to the city, as to what our questions are, that we've got to close the questions probably today, so that they have a finite list to work from.
Understand. Well, they do already have a finite list from the open items of the existing items. And today, folks, if you have some additional, for the members, if you have additional questions that you'd like to have added or addressed, then I would send them off to Julian. And before getting them back, I would like an opportunity to make sure that we take them. So I would say today, give them back to Julian. And then from there, what we will do is review it with the secretary and get them back to the city. If there's any additional to add to the existing list. Okay, Bob?
Kim, I just have a question. What's our final position here on one-time revenues being used in an operating budget, our projected one-time revenues?
So the secretary had asked that there is a backup plan on the contingency. That was the recommendation. And they provided a report. We then debriefed that today. I have questions within it as if there are a number of items that look like they're repeated, as well as a contingency. I know that the secretary has, I'm not sure if this is the liking of the secretary or not. To my knowledge, I don't think that this is what she had requested, but I will let her make that decision.
Well, wasn't it the board's edict at the inception, I know before you were here, that we weren't allowing one-time revenues?
Yes, it was.
Okay, are we?
But in addition,
Did we vote to change that position?
this is a little different though, Pat, because what they're identifying is saying that the expenditures are also included within the budget, and that's why they're including the one-time revenues. Rather than carving it out to that special revenue fund that was recommended. And the reason for that we're saying we don't want to do that is because there are base budget items that are being expenses that are tend to regular budget items. It will distort the base budget when you pull it out to special revenue for dealing with the pandemic. So I think it's going to go to a separate line item. Is that what you were proposing? Between Mike Malone, Julian, and Frank?
Right. Okay, are we gonna get a break? You know what I'd like, and I just didn't see here, and maybe there is what they're proposing as, COVID-related expenses, that we get the breakdown and analysis of how they got there, police overtime or whatever else.
Pat, we have that list.
Okay, do we, and that's in the packet, one of these packets somewhere?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's what I was referring to today, that I had analyzed. There were some questions related to that.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
So can I jump in on that, Kim, real quick? So because I want to be clear about, I want to make sure the city's clear on what our expectation is with that list. The list amounts up to the revenue that they've programmed in for ARPA funds in FY22. The list may be very supportable in terms of, that they're COVID-related costs. What the MARB needs at this point, and which the city has not provided, is the contingency plan of what they're going to do to backfill the budget on the revenue side if some or most or all of those expenses turn out not to be eligible for reimbursement through that funding source. In all likelihood, most or all of them will be. But we have, we've got the detail of what they're expecting, but we don't have what the backstop plan is. That's the piece that I think is missing. And maybe, and then the additional clarification on how they arrived at some of those numbers. But the plan is the piece that's missing, as far as I can tell.
I would agree with you, Julian. Thank you for clarifying. Yes, if any of these items that you have listed, it does help balance your budget. And you're saying a lot of this is base budget items. You definitely need to, as the secretary had requested, have a contingency plan. And Frank, that doesn't mean you have to change all of your numbers. It could be, if I get to this level and this dollar amount is not included and has been identified as not included, I will do A, I will do B, I will do C in order to close that gap. I know that you're not going to fire or lay off all of these people that are listed here as base budget items.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that means your operation can't cover the base budget items. That's what it means.
Okay, understood.
Okay.
We'll take a look at it.
It could be that you're going to use the MARB resources. You have $2 million that was planned and that wasn't used. If you want to close it, or other action could be used.
Okay, we'll take a look at it, Kim, and put something together for you.
Thank you, Frank. Julian. Does that?
You cut off there. Were you asking a question?
No, I was thanking him. Does anybody have any other questions about the 5-year plan or the and anything to add to the recommendation? If not, then I would ask that you send those any additional recommendations that you might have. Now, we already have provided to the city. But based on the materials that we received today, if there's any additional requests, we need to get that to them. All right, the next agenda item is the corrective action plan. And Frank, could you please bring us up to date on that?
Okay, so as we compare it to the last month's document, the purchasing person is being transitioned this week out of payroll. So that line item has gone from red to yellow. He will begin to take more and more of the purchasing responsibilities. Included with that will be, I'm going to ask him to do an overview of everything that is being done now, right? So one of the line items that came up with the audit was how the purchase orders are being handled as far as receiving goods and services the way a normal purchase order would. I would say currently probably 80% of all expenditures here in the city are either done through voucher or purchase orders are created after the fact. We are looking to change that and redefine that process. So that will be an ongoing issue. Training will be a big part of that. The IT department has gone out and gotten me quotes for a number of laptops that can be used in a training environment. So we will have them on hand. Part of the problem the city had in the past was when training was conducted, it was more of a lecture and less of a hands-on training session, which means that probably only 10% of what was covered is actually absorbed. So we're looking to fix that. That is in process. Those laptops are being ordered. The RFP for the pensions has gone out. So we are waiting to get everything back on that. Allingtown's pension program or problem is being addressed. As I mentioned last time, the individual that was receiving the incorrect payment, that ongoing payment has been corrected. And CLA or Bloom is in the process of reviewing the process around the Allingtown pensions. So they are reaching out to the Allingtown business manager to get all that information. So that project has already begun. So it's not entirely green. So I'm giving it kind of a yellow with shades of green. You know, we're making progress, but they haven't finished yet.
Well, I'm glad that
Frank, just to interrupt real quick. When you talked about the person receiving the incorrect pension, that was an overpayment?
Yeah, as discussed previously.
And that's been, how are we recouping that?
How are we recouping the?
We've been paying a pensioner beyond what the benefit was supposed to be?
Yes.
Okay, and that's been corrected moving forward. Are we recouping or making any attempt to recoup the overpayment?
Yes, I don't have a choice. We have to.
Okay, how are we doing that?
Well, first, we're doing a study to make sure that this is not a mistake that we're doing in other areas. So I need to treat everybody the same if there is an overpayment. But secondly, obviously, we would go after the person who is in receipt of funds, and obviously they have all their rights to due process. We're seeking a voluntary recoupment. We have some, obviously, tools that can recapture that money in a variety of different ways. And we'll see how that plays out. They have due process rights as well. So that probably will take a little bit of time to ferret out.
Okay, what was the total amount of overpayment to that individual?
I believe it was 65,000 approximately, but I'd have to go back to my figures to get the exact amount.
Okay.
I thought it was $1,000 a month for approximately a number of years. Right?
Yes. Yes, it was roughly $1,000 a month. It looks like it started in 2014, mid 2014.
Okay. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that the auditors are looking further into this. That's good news.
Yeah, I'd like a follow-up plan with what we're doing. I hope this doesn't need to take too much longer. If we know somebody was overpaid, we can approach that without waiting to figure out if everybody else was too.
Well, given a cursory look, right? So the pension was paid in the city, by the city, when Allentown was absorbed in 2013. So what I did was I looked at the 2013 1099s for those individuals compared to the 1099s that they got in 2020 to confirm that this was the only individual that had that distortion in his payment. And that was the only individual that had that kind of distortion. So everyone else is in line with the 2013 payments, with I think the average increase over those 7 years is roughly 5%, something like that. So I would imagine that was the COLA adjustments.
Okay, so we're not still wondering if someone else has been overpaid, correct?
Correct. Well, that's what the auditors are going back to confirm. But
Right.
My analysis is that nobody else received that kind of an overpayment.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I guess with that said, I guess what I'd like in fairly short order sometime is what the plan is in recouping this money. But we can move on to the next one. We can discuss that in a few days.
Yeah, this is on our agenda for every subcommittee, Pat, to get an update.
Yep.
Okay. Other items that we have open still that you're addressing. Bank reconciliations is still open and it's hot.
The cash controls?
Number 4.
Oh, bank reconciliations. Yeah, I need to meet with the assistant finance director to find out what he's already done as part of that. I'm not exactly sure why this is there. I know that there is a formal process reviewing bank reconciliations, but I will double check with them. Perhaps they're not doing the reconciliations, as soon after the month end as they should be.
And they probably need the date signed. Okay.
Yeah, I will follow up with him and I'll have an update for you in the next meeting.
Perfect, thank you. Cash controls, that one's an open item as well with no update.
Yes, that is, I believe that they have started signing off on the monies that are being brought up. I will double check that for you.
Thank you. And the last one that looks open, were you referring to probably not the purchasing person? Well, you said purchasing approved the vendor list. That is one of the areas that your new, what is his title?
Yeah.
Purchasing director? No?
Purchasing manager.
Manager. This is one of the areas that still has to be looked into, or it's being.
Yes. Number 3 and number 6, I consider to be tied in together. It's all part of the same process.
Okay, thank you.
What I've noticed is in the past, as vendors have been created in the system, shortcuts have been taken to get the vendor paid. So they would create the vendor, put in the appropriate mailing address, etc., but never put in, or I won't say never, but in cases that the federal ID number has not been put into the system. Now, Munis does have a protocol around it that if you try to create a vendor with an ID that's already in the system, an FID number, it doesn't allow you to create that vendor. So what's happened is vendors are being created without going through the necessary approval process or, having all the information put in at the same time. So that all of that will be addressed as we move forward to fix the purchasing process.
Franca, I've experienced this in my career. I want to let you know, take a hard nose on this one. No ifs, ands, or buts. If you change the messaging that without a federal ID, you can't go into the system, I cannot create a vendor, that is it. Your AP person should never, ever, ever allow a vendor to be established without a.
Well, I have been creating the vendors over the past several months until the purchasing person can transition. And
Okay.
I can tell you that I did not create a vendor unless I received an appropriate W-9.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can back, this didn't happen on Frank's watch. Let's just be clear about that.
I just know it's a finding. That's all I know is that I identified it. And so whether you're saying that means that payments had to happen during this year, because when the auditors did their test, they are still identified that federal IDs were not in there in the system. So there is a weakness.
Agreed.
Thank you.
And that's part of what I'm trying to fix is to actually put in a real purchasing process.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, it's an easy fix, Frank. You'll take those any day.
Absolutely.
No is no.
And part of it is, even adjusting what goes out in the, in the verbiage on the purchase order to the fact that what I'd like to include, what I've included in a prior, my prior life is we've adjusted the purchase orders to state that if we do not receive an invoice from you within a certain amount of time, we will not honor that invoice. Because we have instances where contractors or whoever send us an invoice and say, hey, we never got paid for this because we never bothered to send it to you, and it's 6 months old. So I'm trying to avoid that as well.
All right, thank you for that update. I do have 2 items that are relative. When you mentioned that the pension and investment RFP had went out, that was mentioned at the last meeting that it had already gone out. I thought by this meeting we would have heard that it had been completed and a selection had been made.
Yeah, sorry about that, Kim. There was some confusion because our purchasing person hadn't been in place. So we basically had to do that ourselves, and it caused the delay. So hopefully we'll have some, and if I get reports in even prior to the meeting, I'll email you and Julian information on that.
Okay, thank you. The other item I'm looking for an update on is the status of the ADP implementation. From the last meeting, the Board of Ed was not able to go live with implementation because of, I think it was some withholding issues. Can you just bring the committee up to date on that?
Kim, that we went live, the payroll of 4/7. So we fixed all the issues and we're good to go.
Thank you, Matt. Good news.
Yes.
I bet it feels good to have some of this behind you, but of course I know that there's still work to be done even though you go live.
Yeah, there's still quite a bit of work to go.
One other thing on that project, Frank, at some point or Board of Ed, maybe it's both. I would like to know the project when originally you went under contract with ADP and what was going to be the areas that we were going to implement and phase in. I don't think I've ever seen a plan as far as what we went under contract for and what we've implemented to date and the phases of what's to come. Or was that on the old, that list that we used to get, the large list when you were having your check-ins?
Why don't we do this, Kim? Because ADP was kind of a big learning curve on a number of levels. So I don't know that what you described, with all due respect, would be useful. But why don't we just, we can give you a little summary and history of what's occurred. You know, there have been some positive things that were not anticipated. ADP, because of their professionalism and history and place in the marketplace, found some things that were useful, et cetera. But also, you know, they forced us to analyze issues of capacity in terms of implementation. That won't necessarily be capacity issues post-implementation. So we can put the summary together of, you know, from the day we started to where we are now and what we discovered and so on and so forth. Because it did evolve. We didn't anticipate certain things, and it was on both sides.
Right. But what I'm really looking for, Lee, is that when you went under contract, you went under contract to implement, let's say, you know, 5,000 people, you know, 1,000 people. And you have the actual agencies that you were going to implement, so, or your departments that you were going to implement. And from that implementation, there's costs that went with that. I'm sure ADP is getting implementation costs. I want to make sure that we, from cost benefit analysis, that when you went under the contract, if you have not put everybody onto the new system, what is your plan to put them onto the new system? When is that to come? So you're live. I know you're live in 2 areas, but I don't know if you're live with everybody, and I don't think you are.
No, we're not. We still have some, I will call it, negotiation to do to implement further.
Okay.
But you know, like I say, some of this was a learning curve on both ADP side and our side. Sometimes we were right. Admittedly, most of the time they were right. And I'd be happy to provide, you know, sort of a analysis of how that went, because it could be useful to the board in terms of how you analyze, you know, future municipal entities who find themselves in this position.
All right. Thank you, Lee.
Kim, it's Matt. All Board of Ed employees are being paid under ADP.
Thank you, Matt. That's good news.
Yeah, and I think all city side, I mean, they're being paid by ADP. It's you know, police and fire, we're still trying to figure out how to get a time punch system. But there are feeds that are happening from the systems that they're using to capture their data. So it's not a manual process anymore.
Right. And we're finding it, not surprisingly, we're finding fewer errors by doing that. So they have a system, they put the information in, they are able, working with ADP, they are uploading that data in. And we're not creating paper ledgers anymore. The fire department is not using legal pads. So that's positive.
Yes.
We hope to make other progress.
Is there proper signatory authorities?
Well, the system is designed that the proper signatory authority is not just specific to, let's say, the police department, but every department head. And in fact, I can tell you, even in my own department, you know, immediately there's pushback. Are you doing X? Are you doing Y? Are you doing Z? So there'll be a learning curve for each department head and each supervisor who's in charge of payroll. But yes, there's a specific sign-off system. You have to go into the system. You have to say okay. There are some things that are a little different than before, so adjustments have to be made as to how people, you know, take time off or do comp time or do overtime. We even changed the work week. That was, you know, a little bit of an issue with the unions, but I think it went off fairly seamlessly. So there's a lot of stuff that comes up. and we're moving forward on it. But like I say, I think the summary would be useful to you, and then you know you'll have questions. You'll have questions off the summary like you do now, but
Yep,
you'll at least have questions based on information.
Very good. Does anybody have any other questions that they want to discuss today? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Christine. I didn't hear who the move was. I think it was Pat.
It was.
Thank you, Pat. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.